But could this power of the pulpit provide religious leaders protection from even the darkest allegations? Ask the Catholic Church.
You may not like who I am as much as you like who you think I am.
During John F. Kennedy's run for presidency in 1960, many believed his Catholic faith would make him unelectable. Anti-Catholicism was widespread, forcing the candidate to face it head-on.
The question is whether I think that if I were elected president, I would be divided between two loyalties, my church and my state. Let me just say that I would not.
Kennedy was able to overcome worries about him being a puppet of Rome. But in his home state of Massachusetts, where nearly half the population identifies as Catholic, the church exerted exactly the kind of political influence Kennedy denied existed. For decades, the Catholic leadership could act with near impunity, with little to fear from elected officials. When it comes to holding power to account, the Boston Globe's Michael Resendez knew there was no greater power in the city than the one wielded by the Catholic Church.
The city of Boston was the most Catholic city in the United States. And also, Boston was really a collection of Catholic, ethnic, blue-collar people who really revered the Catholic Church. The legislature responded to the Catholic Church whenever it wanted something, or whenever it sought to block something.
Something the Globe's investigative team Spotlight learned when it began looking into a lawsuit against Father John Geoghegan, a former Boston priest who was suspected of sexually abusing nearly 150 young boys over decades.
In a civil lawsuit, there is a process known as discovery when both sides turn over the evidence that they've accumulated that they may use at trial. But all of these documents were sealed by the court at the request of the Boston Archdiocese.
The head of the Archdiocese was one of the most powerful men in Boston. Cardinal Bernard Francis Law was also a media-savvy, charismatic figure.
You may not like who I am as much as you like who you think I am.
Cardinal Law was a very, very influential prelate, not only in the Archdiocese of Boston, but all over the United States. And he often hoped that he would become the first pope from the United States of America. Cardinal Law was friendly with the Reagan administration, played a role in the fact that Ronald Reagan won the state of Massachusetts twice. Cardinal Law was especially close to George Herbert Walker Bush. They had a friendship, just really understood how to play politics.
Cardinal Law's imposing presence helped the church remain off limits to the city's investigative journalists. But in 2001, a new editor at the Globe authorized the Spotlight team to dig deeper into the Father Geoghegan case.
So the first thing we did was just call all our sources and ask them if they knew anything about the issue of clergy sex abuse. And pretty quickly, we came up with the notion that there was more than one bad priest, that there were other John Geoghegans.
But they needed more than a notion. They needed proof. Enter Phil Saviano of SNAP, the survivors network of those abused by priests. For Saviano, it was personal.
I was sexually assaulted, I don't know, I remember 5 or 6 times specifically, mostly when I was 12 years old. The priest came to town on a new assignment, and the fact that I lived in the neighborhood and that I was the newspaper boy put me in contact with this priest quite a bit.
Saviano had spent years cataloging his own story and amassing evidence from other survivors.
Phil showed up in the Spotlight office, and he had a box of material for us to read. Several books, newspaper articles, magazine articles. One of the things in his box was a disc, and the disc contained expert testimony in a clergy sex abuse case from Texas. Estimated that only about half of all practicing priests were celibate. Of that number, 6% of priests were having sex with children.
Could the same be true of priests in Boston? The answer came from the church's own documents.
The Boston Archdiocese, like many other dioceses, publish an annual directory of clergy. So you can look up a particular priest and see where he's been assigned. A lot of priests had assignments that we didn't really understand. Like some priests were assigned to emergency response, some were sick leave, some were on loan. And eventually we got the notion that maybe these kind of strange assignments were euphemisms for priests who'd been accused of clergy sex abuse and had been put on the shelf. So we came to understand that emergency response meant that a priest was confined to the rectory. Sick leave often meant that a priest had been assigned to a facility for abusive priests. So all of these euphemisms, we decided to put them all together in one database. If 6% of clergy were having sex with children, 6% in the Boston Archdiocese would have translated to 90 priests, and that in fact was about the number that turned up in our database after we'd been through the church directories.
They had a smoking gun. The pattern was clear. Then another breakthrough. The Globe is successful in lifting the confidentiality order on the church's sealed documents.
And the documents were released to the public, showing that Cardinal Law and his bishops all knew that John Geoghegan was a serial pedophile and had molested more than 150 children over 30 years in 6 different parishes.
We learned through the Spotlight investigation that there are a number of cases that police knew about, but they brought the cases to Cardinal Law and he convinced them not to tell anybody, to keep it quiet.
It took Spotlight's tireless investigation to finally overcome the church's power to protect its own.
But today, the thousands of documents once confidential both illustrated and underlined the mistake and tragedy.
We kept writing stories. We kept finding allegations against more abusive priests. And finally, Cardinal Law resigned on December 13th of 2002.
In 2017, Cardinal Law died in Rome at the age of 86. But the sex abuse scandal that he came to symbolize persists to this day.
The Catholic Church in America alone has now paid something like $4 billion to the victims of clergy sexual abuse. This is a very deep problem within the Catholic Church.
A problem the church saw a solution to in 2020. Resendez was reporting for the Associated Press when news of the federal government's pandemic relief Paycheck Protection Program was announced by President Trump.
They asked Congress to pass the Paycheck Protection Program, giving small businesses emergency economic relief.
For many Catholic parishes, this program, designed to help struggling businesses make payroll at the height of the pandemic, was heaven sent.
We know that President Trump met with more than 600 Catholic officials in a teleconference situation. And during this meeting, President Trump explained that they were all going to be eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program. And he also reminded everyone that we were approaching an election. And what we noted is that a lot of the dioceses that had made big payments to survivors, in some cases dioceses that had filed for bankruptcy, they were awarded paycheck protection funds that allowed them to essentially replenish their coffers. This story and many other stories by many other reporters really do reflect the enduring power of the Catholic Church. Someday the Associated Press won't exist. Someday the Boston Globe won't exist, but the Catholic Church will endure.
Religious institutions have long wielded their political influence through generally accepted democratic norms. But some evangelical leaders have taken a decidedly anti-democratic approach to gaining power.
Now, many of our Christians want everybody